What's up? Bandai's 148 ATST. This is what we're gonna build. So without further ado, let's get it. Removed all the parts from the bags. Now I need to wash them to clean them so that they'll take primer and paint a lot easier. I use Super Clean to clean all my parts. I use warm water and a toothbrush. Scrub it. Make sure you don't hurt any of the delicate parts. Now that they're all clean, let's go to assembly. We've already assembled some of the parts. This is for one of the legs. I've assembled them to a point to where they need some putty and stuff before I can prime and paint them, and then I will put them together. Once I get a section done, I'll put them in a Ziploc bag so that I don't lose any of the parts. Like so. And set them aside and move on to assembling the rest. Trimming the pieces from the sprue. Use nippers. Get some of these. These are a must-have. I've seen people use nail clippers. Use X-Acto, straight edge X-Acto. You can use whatever you want, but I love these. It makes it a lot easier. Just have to be sure that when you're trimming, you trim a little bit away from the edge. You'll use an X-Acto blade to trim off what's left and then sand it down smooth. That way you don't rip any of the plastic from inside. There's plastic on the edge sometimes, given whether it's a hard plastic kit or it's a softer kind of plastic, it'll tear off some of it while you're pulling the part away from the sprue. And I take my X-Acto, trim as flush as I possibly can. Then I'll usually take one of these cheap diamond files. Everything you see that I have here I got on Amazon or eBay. So I'll rough that until I completely get rid of the nub. Let's move a little closer here. Move this stuff out of the way. Until I get rid of the nub. And I'll take a sanding stick. I use sanding sticks. I use a foam sander. That's for round edges because it's so pliable. It makes the round edges work better. And then a rougher one to get more off if I need to get more plastic off. Run with my finger. Smooth. Smooth. Alright, I'll do the rest of these and we'll be back. When I glue parts, I use Embroid Pro Weld. It is a weld that has a brush inside the cap. I prefer it because like just a little bit is all you need. You glue to the inside if you can, where nobody will see it. That way it leaves a very clean outside. I wanted to show how I do round parts. You can see this little nub right here. Take the X-Acto, nub. Find the nub, place the X-Acto on it like that, and pull towards the back, away from the face. There, once you've done that, take your spongy file, sand like that, find the nub with my finger. Since it's round and it's a sponge, it's pliable, so it conforms to the edge. There. Now you have a nice, smooth, round part. There you go. Here's another case of gluing on the back. This piece slides in here, and it's a good tight fit. But right here is where you want to glue. It only takes a little bit. So just a little right there. So it works off a capillary. As soon as you touch it on there, it will seep into the seam. Since it is a weld, it'll weld it. But there are no glue marks on the outside. Nice clean part. I have a seam here. You can see right here. There's a seam.
So far, so good for Felix. 4 up, 4 down.
I've already glued the part together. What I've done is I've taken some Super T CA glue and put a nice line across that line. Once it dries, I'll be able to sand that and get a real nice smooth transition from the front to the back, so you won't even be able to see that there's a seam there. Just a little trick. Here's our edge right here. I did put another layer of the Super TCA on there. File it all down. First using a flat diamond file because it takes off a lot pretty quick, and then using my sponge file, since it is a curved surface and it has some pliability in the sponge, to get a nice smooth edge. Now I'm going to take some surface primer and brush it on, let it dry, and then look to see if I've got any dips or pits or anything like that, so I can correct those. Okay, I've painted some surface primer on here. I just used a little bitty flat angle brush, put it on there. I just need enough to be able to see if there's any dips or pits. And then I will sand this down and we'll look at it again. Okay, final sand. Here's our edge. There is a little bit that you can see, a line, but that's only because the CA glue is not colored like the plastic. So here's the sanded side. And here's the other side, which I need to do the same process to, and I will do that now. I've put the side panels on just to kind of test fit in the top too, just to see. But as you can see, our little seam lines have virtually disappeared. So it looks clean.
This morning is
I like it.
Blake's media section talking about just did a count.
Here are the two insides of the leg pieces. Here you can see I've just applied the Super T CA glue. And this one, I already filed it all down, and I just painted on with that brush a little bit of surface primer. So I'm going to let the surface primer dry, and then I'll file it down to see if I've got any bumps or anything like that, and we'll see what that looks like. I've sanded off the primer that I painted. As you can see, it looks pretty smooth. You are going to see some lines because, as I said, the CA glue does dry kind of clear. Now I need to do this one. Get it all ready. I have some seam lines I need to get rid of. Here you can see them right here in reflection. Now, the way I usually start these is I take my X-Acto and I scrape them like that. Most plastic is shiny, so if you get it into a position where it's reflecting, then you scrape until you see no more reflection. That way you know you've gotten rid of the seam line. I've scraped the seam lines as best I can. As you can see, the plastic doesn't shine anymore. I've gotten it pretty level. But I still need to go back with my sanding stick here and smooth it out a little bit more. I've sanded it down with my sanding stick. I still have some edges, there's some dips, just some inconsistencies. So I think I'm going to brush on some surface primer and let that dry, and then file that down and see if it fills in those little cracks and little dips. I've sanded down the surface primer, and you can kind of see what's left. And what's left is what was in those little grooves. So I've got a pretty good flat surface, which will even out even more when I put the final primer on and then the paint. Now I'll go through the rest of the parts for this leg and do the same process to all of them. I'm going to show you how to paint this, how I do it. You get the paint on the brush and you dab it. Try not to leave any bubbles. You don't have to thin it. Essentially just putting it on the dent or the divot. This side actually sanded pretty good, but I'm going to go ahead and put a thin line on there anyway.
And then be up here and hit the ground running, which is called up, which could be the end of April. Just to wrap up,
let it dry.
If he stays down in the minor leagues,
then I'll come back in with the sanding stick.
So do you see him coming up right when that time expires? I think it depends on how Mike Olds fares at third base here, along with Chris's comfort level playing some outfield.
There you can see it's a real nice smooth coat, and then, like I said, once it dries, come back with a sanding stick and sand it down smooth, and I'll show you what that looks like. I've sanded down the surface primer. You can see how much is left, so there was a considerable little dent in the two parts being joined together. But now they're one, it looks like one solid part. Gluing some pieces together. This is one of the legs. I'm leaving this half off for now because once I paint it and everything, I want to make sure I can get into this little nook right here. And I'm getting ready to glue this foot pad on, but it does have some movability. Let me take this clamp off here. As you can see, there's a little bit of movability so that you can position the legs. So I don't want to glue here. I just want to glue here and on the bottom. So I still get that movability to be able to position it, and then I'll probably glue it because I want this to be static, not posable. I put a little clamp on here, and I'm going to glue this top part.
So the question is, if I could offer you Clayton Kershaw or Madison Bumgarner with Kershaw. Not even Clayton. And I think with apologies to Bumgarner, he's really, really good. Not Kershaw good.
I wanted to do a test fit pose for this ATST. I like this pose. It's a very dynamic pose. The head is tilted down a little. Looks like something you would have seen in Return of the Jedi. Just a little sneak peek. The next video, part 2, I think I'm going to do some lasers in this. I haven't figured out exactly how, but I want to do some lights in here, and laser is about the only light I can do. It'll be a simple lighting. But thank you all for watching, and look forward to part 2.